Instead of a revolving line of credit like a credit card, it's tied to each individual purchase. So it's anything from cosmetics to technology to now, as we're seeing, even our fast food and food delivery orders.
But I was ordering something, and then it asked me if I wanted to split up my payment. And I was like, oh my God, we are in a crisis. Like, people are financing their food purchases.
This is no longer a drill. We're in trouble, y'all.
We are really in trouble right now. I'm like, do people understand what this really, really means? Can you believe that kids as young as 11 are signing up for buy now, pay later options? I'm like, 11? What are you doing? What are you doing? And listen, I am so happy that you are here today for this episode of the Thank Me Later Show with me, your host, Jini Thornton, because we are discussing all things buy now, pay later. You know, it started out as like, oh, wow, this is convenient. Oh, how lovely is this? They're giving me some flexibility. But most of you aren't thinking about it as a form potentially of predatory lending. That this is just another way for us to buy something at one price and then pay significantly more for it later. And that essentially is the business model. So again, welcome to another episode. So happy that you're here. I'm so happy to have that conversation with you all today, and super excited that Briana Franklin is back with us again to have this whole conversation about the buy now, pay later.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me for round two.
Oh, absolutely. So again, I just want to do a proper introduction of you. So listen, you started your professional career, not that you wanted to, but really focused on the student loan epidemic, because you were a person who fell victim to the whole student loan thing, graduating with about 120-ish.
Yep.
$120,000.
120 after interest.
120 after interest in student loan debt. But I see that really exposed you to predatory lending, period.
Yes.
And so I'm happy again that you're here. And I really appreciate the fact that you took your pain and that you have turned it into something else. So I know that you are a businesswoman, a philanthropist, but you are really committed to the Black community understanding what they're signing up for, like what it really, really means.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's just jump into this because, here, with the Thank Me Later show, our whole emphasis is on transformation. We are committed to people learning, and our transformation today that we're focused on is staying disciplined so you don't have to use these buy now, pay later options. All right. So again, thank you all for tuning in. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into this. So the companies, Afterpay, Affirm, Klarna, they are a buy now, pay later. Can you explain what that really means?
Yeah. So this is not new, right? We've seen it in previous generations with layaway.
Yes.
Buying something at Walmart.
Yeah.
Sofa, furniture, what have you.
Right.
And paying over those 12 months of installments at whatever interest rate. Same principle. Instead of a revolving line of credit like a credit card, it's tied to each individual purchase. So it's anything from cosmetics to technology to now, as we're seeing, even our fast food and food delivery orders.
Yeah. When I saw that for the first time, and I can't remember where I saw that at, but I was ordering something. And then it asked me if I wanted to split up my payment. And I was like, oh my God, we are in a crisis. Like, people are financing their food purchases.
This is no longer a drill. We're in trouble, y'all.
We are really in trouble right now. I'm like, do people understand what this really, really means? So let's talk about who's using this. Like, who is the primary customer?
Everybody. It's marketed as this, upside solution of, hey, you can't afford it all today. Don't worry. Come to us and we'll help you break it down into 4, 8, 12, however many monthly easy payments. There is no age range. There is no, color to this. There is no demographic. It's now pretty much on any mainstream purchasing platform. So if you're logging on to Amazon or what have you, it's an option that everybody is going to see. And those who fall for it, hook, line, and sinker, tend to be younger. They tend to be our Gen Zers and even our older Alpha Gen. So that's the youngest. And that's anywhere from, as you said, 10, 11 to the early teens and later.
And so how does it work? So obviously you're buying something, you're ordering something. You don't want to, or you cannot afford it all at one time. Mm-hmm. They're breaking up the payments. Obviously, there's some interest involved. Mm-hmm. You have an idea about what the average interest rates are?
The average, I mean, they're as low as zero, because if you're paying it on time, then it truly is okay. It was an $80 purchase, but then I couldn't afford the $80 this one time. So I split it up into 4 payments of $20, which I did experimentally just because I'm like, if I'm going to know the ins and outs of this, I want to see how this is going down. And so it was no extra money added onto that purchase. Interest can be as high as 36%. So that rivals even some really schemy, terrible credit cards. So yeah, it's a wide range, and it depends also, of course, on how many payments. So of course, they're going to incentivize you by paying more sooner. So if you have those longer installments, 12, 16, 18 months, that tends to creep it up into the double digits. But to stay in the single digits of, the 4 to 6%, that's if you're going to split it at, 4 payments or 6 months max.
Right. And so for the people who are listening to us and they're like, what's the big deal? Like, I'm happy that we have this option. Why is this a big deal?
When we were together last time, I mentioned that predatory lending or, debt constraint is predicated upon either deception or discipline. And so much of it traditionally has been discipline, where it's like, teenagers getting their first credit card don't know how to act. And against all wisdom and advice, they are still, running up these outsized tabs. There's now a deception component that is increasing the lack of discipline, because it's saying, hey, you don't have to delay gratification. You don't have to save. You don't have to wait. You can get this right now. And you can just pay a little bit now, and then you can pay a little bit more next month and a little bit more until it's all paid off and behind you. But where things get really sticky for the younger users of this, so the tweens and teen crowd, is that income was one-off. It was a birthday gift. It was bar mitzvah money. It was chore money. And it was very, very short-lived. And they're not thinking a year plus down the line, when they're not old enough to qualify for, a W-9 job or just money that's consistently coming in. And so then they're like, I still have to pay off this iPad, and yet I was only able to pay for the first 2 months.
Right. And I really like the part that you're talking about, which is just the delayed gratification, just this notion of not having to wait for anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, just adults can't handle that. Mm-hmm. Certainly children can't either. Right. Just this whole thing. I'm going to work. I'm going to save. Then I'm going to buy, versus I have to have it now. Mm-hmm. And so parents and adults, what I really want you to understand is really changing the mindset of young people, that everything is literally right now. And what will happen is, when they can't have it right now, what they will do to get it right now.
Yes.
Herein lies the problem, because that's when they're going to miss payments, or they'll spread their payment terms out longer because they cannot wait. And so, there's something about the whole notion of waiting, saving for whatever the purchase is. But like I said, when I saw it for food, I was like, you have got to draw the line. To be kidding. That to me, that made it super, super scary for me.
Yeah.
To think that you could be ordering from whomever, no shade at whomever your favorite restaurant place is, or whatever your favorite food delivery place is, that you could be doing that and then potentially stretching out your payments for food.
Right. Because the thing that's so predatory about that is the stackability, because it's not limited. So, they won't say, oh no, you're still paying off your Chick-fil-A order, so once that's exhausted, then you can come back for Subway. They're like, oh no, we're going to do it all.
You can do it all.
Yep. Credit permitting. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's a problem. So again, this is not, we're not here to just say shame on you for using it, but we need you to be aware. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that you understand the emotional connection of what's happening here, that we're literally teaching everybody to not to have to wait for anything. And that's where really debt comes from.
Yes.
It's like, I have to have it all right now. So I am
Yes.
going to swipe my credit card. I'm going to use whatever. This is just now giving you another option to getting into debt.
Yeah, life is short. Live for the moment.
Right.
Worry about it later, like we had talked about last time. But it also, when you think about it, it fits so hand in hand with today's just everything instant generation.
Right.
Our Wi-Fi connection, our ability to shop and to procure anything, just with us setting this new debacle aside, but
Right.
to outsource and to order things and just have it all when I want it, how I want it immediately. Those reduced barriers to entry come off as a convenience, but that's really what's getting people caught up.
Right. And then the other thing too, I want people to understand that there's a certain level of maturity and responsibility that comes with having debt.
Yes.
And so I think we just want to make sure that we're not just saying, hey, you can have what you want, and then we'll figure it out later. We have to make sure that people who are using this, kids, tweens, or adults, that you are clear on what this really means.
Correct.
You have to understand what this really means. Let me just share a story with you. So I work in nationally syndicated radio. So I hear from listeners from across the country all the time. And so this woman reached out to me. I'm thinking that she had to be probably closer to my age, in her 50s. And she needed some help with credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. So I gave her an assignment to send me over her list of credit cards. And she did. And I think there were like 13 of them.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Store cards, I imagine.
And so what? Yeah, she had it all.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, and I mean, like, I just stopped counting the store cards. I literally just kind of stopped counting the store cards, but that's what that was. It's like, I have to have it right now. That's where that mentality comes from.
Yes.
And so she had to have it. She had an Amazon card. She had this. She had this. Again, I don't have any issue with any of the retailers, but you have to have the maturity, the discipline that you've talked about before when it comes to this. Their job is to constantly send us messages of, you need this. You need to order this. You don't have to wait.
Yeah.
Just
your
get it
life
right.
isn't complete until you get it.
Your life is not complete. And then you'll look up and then you'll be in this debt, or you'll look up 13 credit cards later. So it sounds crazy, but I understand exactly how she got there. I'm like, I know exactly how this happened for her.
Yeah.
And then we start telling ourselves a story, how we deserve it. We can't wait, all of the things, and that is just fuel on the fire. We look up and like, how in the world did we get here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Absolutely.
Slippery slope.
A very, very slippery slope. So adults, parents, I would suggest that you don't allow your children to use this, because again, we don't want them to get in the habit of doing this. Allow that they can work, they can save. When they have the money, they can bring it to you, and then we can have this transaction. And again, let's be okay with learning to wait.
Yes.
We have to be okay with learning to wait.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which defies so many things of today's generation and the thinking. It takes a little bit of, well, not a little bit, it takes effort and consistency, but it can be done. A lot, like the marketing around it is just that no time like the present, and the fear tactics, right? Oh, before it sells out, or this is an exclusive drop, or it'll only be this cheap today, ever again. And just trying to put that pressure and that false sense of urgency, especially on young people. I'm like, that ought to be criminal.
Right. But again, no matter what's happening outside of your house, you need to have some control of what's happening inside of your house, because there's always going to be something, whether it's buy now, pay later, or it's going to be something else. Adults, I need you to be comfortable having your own rules in your own home.
Yeah.
So this time from the Thank Me Later hotline, I actually have a question that was submitted to us on social media. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. So it says, "Hey, Jini and Bree, thank you both for shedding light on this incredibly timely topic. My 14 and 16-year-olds bought into the buy now, pay later craze last year and have been using it left and right, despite me and my husband's warnings about how it can get them into debt. What advice you have for parents having a hard time getting across to their hard-headed teens? I'm gonna let you go first because I'm gonna answer this as a parent, not as a money expert.
Right. We'll have to tag team this because I don't have the parental lens. But as that formerly hard-headed teenager, I think it's so important to meet them where they are, right? And to, use analogies or just help them understand, like, there are many ways to go about procuring something, and this is not your only option. And to even try to flesh that out. Say, instead of signing up for the buy now, pay later method for your new Xbox, maybe we could work on saving together and put yourself in it. Like, okay, I will match you in this savings goal. Or I say, I want a new handbag. So I'm going to show and lead by example, me putting a portion of my paycheck away towards that. And then we'll set a timeline together. And let's say in 6 months and 8 months, we'll both cash out and enjoy that new console and enjoy that new bag. And we did it together. So, I know that just how I learned in my way of absorbing things as a teenager, that would have worked well for me. I know every kid is a totally different story. That's my approach, is to get hands-on with them and lead by example.
I'm happy that I asked you to go first. I'm over here like, okay, let me just say this. I'm 56 years old. I had my first child in college when I was 21. And so my life started lifing, pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I was raised in a pretty no-nonsense family, and I married kind of a no-nonsense person. I find it difficult when people are negotiating with kids. We are not equals,
right?
And that's the reason why they're called parents and children, or adults and children. And there's certain things I think are absolutely negotiable, or we may need to have some flexibility. But when your children are wrong because they don't understand the consequences of it, it's not negotiable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if, you don't start driving until X, your curfew is Y. You know what I mean? Here are just some things. To me, this is a non-negotiable item. Mm-hmm. And so how you manage that in your household depends upon whatever your form of discipline is.
Very true.
But I'm not negotiating. I'm not suggesting this is how this has to go, because the consequences on the other side. Because if you can't get them to listen now at 14 and 16, you can hang it up when they become in their 20s.
That's real.
It's just going to be a hot mess at this time, because you just kind of having this freedom to think about what you want. You don't know. You don't understand the millions of dollars that's being spent to market your butt.
Right.
And I'm just like, we are not doing this.
I think in how I answered it, I was thinking of it as what I envision would be the way to avoid them sneaking behind, a parent's back. Because I know that contributes.
How do they explain that to me? Like, how can kids do that? Because if they don't have their own money, essentially, like, how are they paying for stuff without their parents knowing it?
Depending on what they have access to, because I know some parents are a fan of the approved user, authorized user rather, on the credit card. Okay. And so kids abusing that and then saying, all right, forget what you're talking about. I want it and I want it now. Mm-hmm. And then just basically, or kids just outright taking the card from, mom when she's not looking, and just kind of resorting to tactics and, being how kids can be, and just, again, thinking that they know better because it wasn't completely explained. So, of course, there's a number of ways that it could go. Mm-hmm. But I think that, ultimately, depending on how much interest or perhaps peer pressure, if it's like one kid out of a group of children maybe who have more means and they can afford the new Skims 2-piece drop, and then the one left out is like, I don't want to be looking raggedy in my Target equivalent. So I just accounting for the scheming that can go on, and how kids, I've seen write-ups about, abusing their parents' trust with it, and then just running it up and saying, oh, well, I was given, I gave my child free access hoping they would do the right thing or listen to my advice. So yeah, it definitely is kind of a gray area.
Right. And then one thing, I'm happy that we're talking about this, because I appreciate your perspective. I would never allow my child to be an authorized user.
Yeah, I would not.
Oh my God.
I've heard of it, but I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Because you're not equipped.
Right.
You're not ready to handle the responsibility of this. It's not like, oh my God, I don't trust you, or who are you? Until I prepare you for it, I'm not going to set you up for failure. There's just no way. I know a lot of adults who can't handle that.
Amen.
Let alone some children. So again, I'm just this whole negotiating with people who are not my equal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not. I'm not a proponent of that.
I totally hear that.
Yeah,
and I think that comes from being on this side of parenting. Honestly,
Yeah.
like a millennial, and no kids. I hear where you're coming
I'm like,
from.
it's my way or the highway, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm definitely okay with that. I'm like, whew, all right, happy we talked about that. Happy we talked about that. So let's get back to this buy now, pay later. Are the rules in place? Because, typically something new is going to happen, and then finally the Federal Trade Commission or whomever will come by, and now they're going to have all of the rules,
Right.
consumer protection, supposedly to protect us. I'm assuming because this is kind of a new craze or wave. Have we gotten to that place yet? Do we have some of the boundaries yet?
It is, I wouldn't say unregulated, because obviously, companies have to, the partnership side of things in terms of like where they can even be present, to my knowledge, I don't think there are any, hard limits in terms of, no, you can't do business this way. I think that ultimately, the company, they're just concerned with, okay, I'm still getting the money, because how it works is that they're effectively fronting the cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the buyer is just paying it back on the back end
It's
in
a loan.
installments. Exactly.
Right.
So it's not quite costing anyone money. So therefore, I don't believe that it has, raised any red flags in terms of, okay, no, you're limited to these industries or these platforms. I think it certainly is on the rise because online spending is on the rise and brick and mortar is fading in popularity. So the store cards that you had talked about, those are becoming more and more obsolete. And so this is now like the shiny new cool way. And then also the marketing side of, unlike a revolving credit card line, this is just tied to the purchase. So they try to really upsell it based on each individual transaction. But I guess to bring it back and summarize, I have not seen anything to say that there are any hard parameters about where and how they can do business.
Right. Now, you keep referencing predatory lending, and I think a lot of people hear that. It feels kind of big and scary, and it kind of feels like, oh, mortgage companies do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That in the context of buy now, pay later, in the context of student loans, what do you mean by predatory lending?
Predatory lending is really just playing with an unfair advantage. It's taking advantage of the ignorance, of the population. I mean, I really think at a basic level, a great analogy is, as kids, if you got a bad grade and you needed your parent to sign that, acknowledgement of the deficiency or whatever it was, and then you try to like slip it under a field trip form or something, right. And then you're like, I got the signature, and they don't know what it was for, but I got it. It's the same principle. It's saying, okay, we're going to give a bunch of smoke and mirrors and make it really hard for you to figure out what exactly you're signing up for, the interest rates, the parameters, the terms, the conditions. Oh, that's just legal jargon. It's not, everything's fine. And then basically once you've signed, gotcha. It's basically just taking advantage of those who are not set up for success and who are, at the mercy of the lending party, really. Mm-hmm. So it's just exploitation and taking advantage at a basic level.
Briana, when I hear you say that, I'm just thinking about, do people know what they're signing up for? And so if you're going to use any of these buy now, pay later, do you really understand what that means? Like, oh, if I make all my payments by X, if you're deciding to use this, if I make all my payments by X, that means I'm going to pay $0 extra.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Right.
Versus like, oh my gosh, if I don't, that means I'm going to be paying X. I think even, understanding how things work. Obviously, people aren't going to get into all of this legal jargon, but people can understand the basic math of things, though. Because to me, that gives different context. Like if I'm buying this $100 outfit and this $100 outfit turns into a $250 outfit, Like that hits a little differently. I would have never bought it for $250.
Correct. Well, and I think that goes to just your natural financial threshold. Like you are very, as you say, no nonsense, and you're all about what's practical and crunching the numbers and having that long-term foresight. I have seen people, I have a few friends who they're like, I'll gladly pay double what this costs if I can spread it out. I don't care.
Really?
They will gladly tack on the interest. They'll be like, whew, like that just saved my butt. So that way I could at least have the look now. I can blend in and I'll, quietly pay that extra on the back end because that is just kind of the tax for having it now. Like there are people who justify it and they are completely at peace. And I've learned to see debt as really a spectrum, and that there's some people who are highly debt tolerant, and then those who are more where you and I are, intolerant, and we're just like, no, this does not make financial sense, and this is a very undisciplined, poor use of money.
I'm happy that you said that because I'm not even thinking about that person who's like, at any cost, I want it. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if they'll feel that way later. You know what I mean? Is that just the feeling today based on that you have to have it right now? Are you really going to be okay with that later?
It's be interesting to see on the back end. Because sometimes it can be double, triple what you paid up front. And I mean, people try to justify and say, well, it's just kind of like I loaned it to myself. They'll tell themselves all kinds of things. But I've definitely seen that, and I try to do my best without preaching to people, or especially if it's peers coming off as, I know more, whatever. But I just try to speak on it from the stance of gatekeep, protect your finances, and just know that whatever that item is, you are still complete and a great person without it. Or if you don't get it for 6 months or when it's no longer on trend, you just have to buck back against the marketing and just those outside pressures, honestly.
Right. So help me understand this. If I buy something and I'm using buy now, pay later, it's not like they're running a credit check on me.
Sometimes, depending on how much and what it's for.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So sometimes for the smaller amounts, probably like your food purchases, probably no.
No.
Right. But if I'm buying a MacBook,
yes,
there probably may be some sort of credit.
A soft inquiry for sure.
Some sort of credit worthiness check. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of similar to it's like applying for a credit card, but not getting a credit card.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Understood.
They will report it if you're delinquent. That's when it will show up on that report. But otherwise, it's off the record.
Okay, so as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So if you do have credit cards or you've got some credit card debt or whatever going on, you can bypass that. You don't have to use that. And now you can use this method too.
Exactly.
So it ends up being an and.
Right. Not a replacement because it's not contingent. The stackability we talked about.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting. That's a little scary.
Right. Yeah. It should be. It's an avalanche waiting to fall.
Oh my gosh. So any advice or tips? So, because obviously some people are going to use it. So for people who are like, you know what, this is a payment method that is a viable option for me. Mm-hmm. Any tips that you kind of like to share to that way they can be at least aware and informed consumers?
I think my advice would definitely be broken up by demographics. So for young folks, college and younger, I would say try to not have that be a habit, because this is really some kids' first experience with money on a meaningful level. And they don't realize the severity of the consequences. And it's like you said, it's a new rewiring and conditioning how they approach money longer term. And it's saying, okay, here's a new way that's been introduced to me. And when that's all you have to go off of, you don't realize that there are other routes. So I definitely say to young people, and then those who are like what you spoke on earlier, parents of minors, don't negotiate. Listen to the parent of the two of us. Like my approach is, I think, maybe idyllic, but I think practically speaking, shut that avenue down, but also be willing to explain why.
The why, for sure.
Because kids, especially at that age, they can definitely make those connections and appreciate an explanation, hopefully, but definitely have the conversation in tandem with setting that hard boundary. And then for grown folk, right? Mm-hmm. Out of college, well into adulthood, parents yourselves, It depends on what it is because, I mean, for instance, so my MacBook, right, the other week broke down.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God the TML team came through and I was able to use a replacement until I save up for a new one when the time is right. I won't pretend that it didn't cross my mind I was like, buy now, pay later. I was like, it really is right there.
I got an option right now.
Yeah. I was like, do I wait another couple of months or get it now? And then I had to I was like, okay, hey, wake up, come back to reality. Remember who you are, what you stand for. No. And so, but the temptation is real. And I speak to it from that standpoint of it's so tempting and seductive to just say, okay, I can just have it right now and then finance it and I'll be fine. But that felt contrary into my own beliefs and what we're even talking about today. So, but obviously I know too that I was fortunate to where I could procure a backup just as a stopgap for the time being. Some folks, when they're in a degree program or it's for work and they don't really have the luxury, if you anticipate being consistently employed and that there won't be a dip or elimination of your income streams in the next 6 to 12 months, it's not the end of the world. You know, it does. There are many cases where it works out and it goes exactly as planned. Just account for, any future hurdles that could come up and don't let it catch you by surprise.
Right. No, I thank you for sharing that. Just a couple points that I'm thinking about, kind of regardless of where people are on the age spectrum, is, be okay with having a time frame of when you need to sleep on something before you make a decision.
Yes.
Because I think you can feel very differently about something just because you've had a moment to kind of step away from it and all of your emotion and senses aren't in it.
Right.
So I think that's important. And people think that's only for big purchases. No, if you are ordering whatever it is to death, whoever your store is, having that time just to kind of sleep on it can change your emotional response to if you have to have this thing right now.
Totally.
Second, again, like we just talked about a little earlier, please just be clear on what it costs you.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of you may think it doesn't matter. It does matter. It really does matter because, based on what your other priorities are.
Right.
Maybe you do want to go on vacation or save or buy a house. These smaller purchases literally can impact your ability to do that.
They sure can.
It's actually connected. So I think a lot of times we think that it's all fragmented. It is not. Mm-mm. So who you are, how you do the small things is how you do the bigger things too.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you are really putting yourself in a really good position to financially, to live the full life that you want. And it's just not get the thing. And then last, let's acknowledge the fact that, there is a real thing of shopaholics.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's not
retail
like
therapy.
Yeah. No, that's a real thing. And so for those of us who get that satisfaction, that need, when we're happy, we do it. When we're sad, we do it. It's emotional thing versus like, I need this broke, I need this.
Mm-hmm.
Some people really need some help.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like there is Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, there's the same thing for shopping. Like before you get on a slippery slope, please get the help that you need because a lot of people are like, it's not a big deal. No, it can. You want to catch yourself, before. And now because it's just so much easier because it's where can you go?
Right.
And you're not being sold to.
It's at every turn.
It's literally at every turn. Some of us need some help to, really to be able to kind of manage that because you don't want to look up again and you're on your back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you. This was your idea to have this discussion about this. And
Thank you for being receptive to it.
I was like, what is happening out here? Buy now, pay later. Is this like a real thing? Let me ask my producer, Chris, do you use it? Not at all. Are you worried about how common it is now? Oh, yeah. You see it everywhere. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. People who are using it a lot? You're not sure, and it could just be me. It feels like it's more marketed towards younger people. It feels that way. No, I could be wrong. Yeah, I could be wrong.
The commercials for sure are targeting younger folks, but I mean, as they see it, everyone could be a customer.
Right.
They're not going to limit themselves, but it goes back
That's
to
their avatar.
That's who's easiest for them to hook.
Oh, for
yes.
sure. Oh, for sure. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. So before we wrap, I want to ask you this question. So finish the sentence. If you blank, you will thank me later.
If you pace yourself, you will thank me later.
Pace yourself, y'all. We're going to have to pace ourselves out here. That's really good advice. So for people who want to connect with you, engage with you, how can they find you on social media, LinkedIn, all the things?
Yes. So my sites or handles, Briana B. Franklin, Briana with one N on Instagram. I'm also heavy into LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com/Briana B. Franklin. And then also following my work, I do a lot to address this actually. I'm working on a fintech called Cadet Prosperette, which is gamifying debt constraint prevention for teens. So I'll be posting a lot more, direct links to the product once we get our MVP out the door. And the speaking I do for high schools to help, keep this problem at bay. So those are the main places you can find me.
Awesome.
Along.
Thank you again for being here. So make sure that you share this information because I know you have somebody in your life. You're like, ooh, you need to watch this. So please like and share our content and take a minute to go back and engage or watch some of our other episodes. So you all know, of course, we have the Thank Me Later community. What a perfect time for me to talk about our first course, which is our credit card debt repayment course. I'm like, if people keep reaching out to me about that. So you can go to thankmelatermoney.com/debt. And this is going to be an easy way to help you simplify, strategize, and lock in to pay off that credit card debt. So happy to be on the journey of your credit card debt payoff journey with you. And thank you for engaging with us for that. And of course, all the social media, Jini Thornton, TML Money. Please continue to send us your questions. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Thank Me Later Show with me, your host, Jini Thornton. And I will see you next episode.